We're cutting across to Rahul Kanwal, speaking with CEO of Serum Institute, Adar Poonawalla, for more information on the vaccine rollout. Let's take a listen.
The government has finally granted emergency use permissions to 2 Indian companies to roll out the first Indian vaccines in COVID-19. Joining us now is the Chief Executive Officer of Serum Institute, Adar Poonawalla. Mr. Poonawalla, congratulations. Welcome. We have multiple questions swirling in our minds and in the minds of our viewers around the vaccines that will be rolled out. Question number 1 to you. How soon will the first batch of boxes that we saw in the cold storage facility of Serum Institute in Pune be leaving your manufacturing facilities and start taking those flights at Pune airport to all the distribution hubs that are waiting after the dry runs? How soon do you see this process start?
So, well, Rahul, as you rightly said, you firsthand witnessed and shot 50 million doses that were prepared and tested and packed, ready for dispatch. And, you know, as soon as the government has a firm agreement with us, they've indicated orally they want 70 to 80 million doses over the next 1 or 1.5 months. And they tell us where to send it. We'll send it across. And so I think another 7 to 10 days would be realistic for a few million doses to start reaching different states and parts of the country.
You said as soon as the government has a firm agreement. Can I press you to explain what as soon as we have a firm agreement means? Why don't we have an agreement already? Which are the loopholes, the questions, the concerns that remain, and how soon do you hope to be able to sign that agreement, and what is causing the delay?
Well, there's no real agreement even required. We're just waiting for some purchase orders, which is formal, normal paperwork to be done so that we can, pack and dispatch the material and send it off. So we've offered a price where we're not going to make a lot of profit at all. In fact, we've offered a very special price of 200 rupees per dose. As you know, in the private market, we're going to sell it at 1,000. So you can see what we've done for the government and the people of India initially, because we want the poorest, the needy, the most vulnerable people to get the vaccine as soon as possible. And so we're just waiting for these formalities. There's no hitch at all. Maybe they were waiting for the licensure formally to come. Maybe that's the government policy. And then after that, they do the paperwork, but I would expect that very soon this week, given the announcement that came earlier on today from the DCGI.
So the whole world's been awaiting these vaccines, but because the world is in the middle of a live pandemic, the regulatory processes have been speeded up. And there are questions about the efficacy of your vaccine and of all other vaccines as well. From what I have understood, it's been declared that the Serum Institute vaccine Covishield has an efficacy of 70%. What does that mean? Does that mean that if 10 people get the vaccine, it will be effective on 7? What happens to the other 3? Can you explain what efficacy means in the context of Covishield?
Okay, so let me explain in the context of Covishield first and what efficacy really is here. We have proven in our trials that we have 100% efficacy on hospitalizations. So 0 hospitalizations were found in the people who took the Covishield vaccine globally, which is a great thing, which means it protects you against severe disease. You could still get infected, pass it on to others, because all the vaccines that we've heard about will not prevent infection totally. In half of the people who have got vaccinated, you'll still be infected and can infect others, but you will be protected. So if you saw the efficacy results of Moderna, Pfizer, which was 95%, in AstraZeneca and Oxford, which is the Covishield product, we were at 70% for one arm and 90% for the other. And that's going to be made very clear as well. We are recommending also to the government of India that you keep a 2.5 to 3 month gap. And this is very important for the viewers and everyone listening, that if you keep a 2.5 to 3 month gap between the first shot of Covishield and the second shot of Covishield, you will have a 90% efficacy. This is proven and even announced by the CEO of AstraZeneca, Pascal, publicly, I think a week ago. And even that data will come out very soon because this was the second arm of the study and efficacy studies that was done abroad. So again, just to summarize, there are only 2 or 3 vaccines in the world, Pfizer, Moderna, the Oxford-AstraZeneca, and I think Sinovac as well, that have proven efficacy results. There is no other vaccine, including ours, made in India and others, Russia, China, or even India, that have proven efficacy at all. And efficacy means you have to vaccinate 25,000 people and show that the vaccine actually protects you, not just a few hundred or a few thousand people to show safety and immunogenicity. So just to clarify, that is what Covishield has done. And we are one of 3 vaccines in the world, 3 or 4 vaccines in the world to have demonstrated efficacy. Nobody else has done that so far.
So if I understand what you said, you're suggesting that if I get a second dose within a month of my first dose, then the efficacy is about 70%. If, however, there is a gap of 2.5 or 3 months between the first and the second dose, then the efficacy is 90%. Is that what
Yes.
you're trying to suggest? Because in
Yes.
the results that we read in Lancet and elsewhere, it said that
Yes.
the AstraZeneca vaccine had an efficacy of 70%. So why this confusion between the results that came out earlier and the results that you are now claiming at this moment?
Well, I'm only echoing what the CEO of AstraZeneca has said, and it's come out from Oxford and AstraZeneca from the trials, because one arm, which did it with 1 month apart, was 60% effective to 70% effective, as you mentioned. And there was another few thousand group of patients where they gave a gap between dose 1 and dose 2. And that's where they found 90%. So, the regulator is going to recommend 1 month to 3 months as a gap. And then it'll be depending on the government and urgency and personal choice of how people want to go about vaccinating themselves. But logic would suggest you wait 2.5 months at least between dose 1 and 2, because, all vaccines, if you look at other vaccines as well, not just COVID-19 vaccines, the longer gap you keep between doses, the better the efficacy results that are found, because you're not loading the system again so fast, and you don't have cross neutralizing antibodies and so many other factors which I won't go into right now, which could affect the efficacy of the vaccine if you take it very closely together.
So what happens between dose 1 and dose 2? So let's assume somebody gets the first dose over the next few weeks, and then he needs to wait for 3 months for the second dose. Will he have any immunity at all? How many days does it take for immunity to start building? How strong is the immunity if you only have 1 dose and you haven't had your second dose yet?
So we found an excellent response below the age of 50 with 1 dose. And, different age groups, different people with different levels of immunity will respond differently. But we can say after a month, even with 1 dose, there's excellent protection, more than even what you find from a COVID recovered patient. And when I say this, I'm talking about 70% of the people were pretty much fully protected with 1 dose. But the second dose is necessary for the long-term immunity protection, and also for those who have not responded so well because of their age and other conditions from the first dose. So you'll definitely have protection, but at least 1 month has to pass after the first dose to get that protection. And let me add, even after the second dose, everybody should maintain masks, social distancing, till treatments and other options and a treatment is available for the disease, because it is a terrible disease, and you can get infected and infect others despite taking the vaccine. You will be protected, but for the safety and sake of everyone else, maintain your precautions of social distancing and wearing face masks till we reach a certain level of herd immunity and vaccine herd immunity, which, as I said, will take a few years, because we're talking about 80-90% coverage across populations in the globe. So that's going to take a while.
Adar Poonawalla, how will a person know that his body now has adequate immunity to be able to ward off that virus? Where does it get calculated? We know for those who are recovering from COVID-19, or those who think they may have had the virus but don't have it, there's something called the IGG antibody test. So you administer it to see whether your body is built antibodies. How will a person find out that the vaccine that you've administered to that particular individual has had some impact? How do we judge that?
Well, you have to do the S1, S2 and RBD tests to check your antibody levels, your receptor binding sites and receptor binding antibodies and all that, and also your T cell responses. This is easily doable. A lot of labs offer these services, and one can check, at least let a month pass between your first dose, and then maybe you can have a look and compare scores with your friends and see how well you're protected. But as I said, in healthy age groups and people below the age of 50, even one dose has shown and demonstrated excellent results.
What's the guarantee that there won't be serious side effects? We heard from the government regulator saying that the side effects are minor, but there have been instances in the US, one here in Chennai with one of your vaccines. He claimed that the results, the blowback that happened in his body was on account of your vaccine. You, of course, disputed it. What's the guarantee, Mr. Poonawalla, that there won't be serious side effects after taking your vaccine?
Vaccines can always give side effects. The safety studies are designed to rule out that your vaccine doesn't give severe side effects. Now, the example that you're referring to was also ruled out by the Health Ministry and DCGI not to even be related to the vaccine. So I must clarify that no one today on this planet has had a severe reaction to the Covishield vaccine. Does that mean it can never happen after hundreds of millions of people are vaccinated? Of course not. We don't know. We have done all that we can by vaccinating thousands of people, monitoring them for months for safety, to ensure that we adhere safety first, and then, of course, all the other parameters. So, no one can ever guarantee and say that nothing will ever happen. But so far, nothing has happened. And as I said, that case was not vaccine related.
You put out a public statement saying the government should indemnify vaccine makers. In case there is a serious side effect, there shouldn't be a lawsuit. What's the current position on that? Has such an indemnity been built into the clause for procurement with the government? Is that something that you're insisting on? And from the customer's perspective, it basically means that God forbid, and I hope nothing goes wrong, but if it does, then the consumer will not have the right to be able to sue the vaccine maker.
Yeah, well, I got a lot of flack for that because people didn't fully understand where I was coming from. Let me explain. Of course, it sounds odd. How can you protect a company and not an individual? Even I would feel that that's odd if you just take it out of context. What I was trying to propose, or I am proposing, we've written to the government of India, all the vaccine manufacturers are united in this. And I, as the president of the Vaccine Manufacturers Association, has written this officially to the government to request this. Because like the US and other countries, only during the time of a pandemic, we all have to be united together. And why do we have to protect the companies? Because if I'm going to be sued or another company is going to be sued every month, because there could be a case related or not even related to the vaccine pending further inquiry, we are risking the reputation of the vaccine, the company, and most importantly, the immunization campaigns. Can you imagine if there's an injunction from a court in a particular state or even nationwide to stop an immunization campaign where millions of people will not be protected from the vaccine pending further inquiry? So these are the risks that, very rightly so in the West, have been assessed, weighed, and concluded that there has to be indemnification only during the period of the pandemic, because we're all here united together. We're all trying to reach the same objective of saving everyone's lives. So we all have to take some risk. We took the risk of making the product, doing all this. Now we only ask and plead with the government and the people of India to stand united with us, have faith that we've done all that we can for safety, and we don't risk the immunization campaigns from being stopped if there are lawsuits and injunctions from a court, because that even the government can't then overrule. So that is what I was trying to explain for a limited period of time.
So what's the current status? Has that been accepted? It's a grey area, or at this moment lawsuits can still take place if, God forbid, there is any kind of a adverse reaction?
No response yet. No response yet. Maybe they're thinking about it and working out how
does the Covishield vaccine compare with Pfizer, Moderna, Biotech? Because Biotech is the other company that's been given emergency usage permission. So how does your vaccine, first let's deal with Pfizer and Moderna. How does your vaccine, Adar Poonawalla, compare with the global pharma giant Pfizer and the blue-eyed pharma biotech startup Moderna?
Well, I wish we could have all made vaccines so quickly using messenger RNA, which is an unproven technology, which has never been proven for vaccines before. And suddenly now in 2 and 3 months, we found and heard that these companies have made a messenger RNA vaccine. So I do question the way in which it has been done. But again, it's not my place to comment on other companies. If it is proving to be effective and safe, we welcome that. We just were hoping that other vaccine manufacturers would be able to make a vaccine that's affordable to the whole world and not just 5 or 10% of the world. And that is where, we stand apart. We've been able to provide the vaccine at a very affordable price. And with the efficacy I shared with you, that we're also at 90%. And again, let me just clarify this point of efficacy. Until hundreds of millions of people across the world in different geographies and ethnicities get a vaccine, you can't really conclude how effective a vaccine is. I mean, just with a few thousand people, we can't definitely say that, it'll be 90% effective in Africa, 90% effective in India. We don't know till hundreds of millions of people are vaccinated across the globe with all these vaccines, and then we can really conclude how effective these vaccines were in their ability to bring down severe infections and mortality in a given population. That is how you assess the effectiveness of a vaccine.
Let's now compare with Biotech. That's the other Indian company that got approval from the Drug Controller of India. People who are watching this broadcast, Mr. Poonawalla, will wonder, should I get Adar Poonawalla's vaccine? Should I get Dr. Ella's vaccine? How do you view this choice? Because, is it Adidas, Nike, is it Pepsi, Coke? Is it just get what you want and get the vaccine and get on? How do you view this question of which vaccine should a person who's watching you go for?
Look, that is entirely their personal choice. I can't comment on that. But all I will say is that, again, there are only 3 vaccines in the world which have proven efficacy: Pfizer, Moderna, and AstraZeneca, Oxford, Covishield. No other vaccine, many vaccines have proven to be safe, but no other vaccine on this planet has proven efficacy where you've injected a couple of thousand people and statistically shown that in the vaccinated arm, you have found, XYZ amount of less infection and severe infection compared to the placebo arm. So only 3 companies in the world have done that. Now it's for your audience to come to whatever conclusions they want. I really cannot comment on anyone else's vaccines. It wouldn't be fair in my position to do so. So I will just leave you with the facts, and then it's for the people to decide.
Since the morning, there have been many questions asked about how Biotech's emergency use approvals came through, even though it will be an extension of a clinical trial, in the absence of phase 3 results and the efficacy being made public. Is that something that the government has done that surprised you? How soon Biotech's got these approvals, Mr. Poonawalla?
Well, it was a surprise because we thought that all companies have to conclude their efficacy studies. But if the government has decided in an emergency to license something which is safe, that's entirely their decision. I don't know what word to use, but that's something you have to ask them. I really can't comment on that.
Lastly, for those watching, when will they have access to your vaccine outside the government distribution system? How soon do you see a scenario where your vaccine will be sold to private chemists and we can go to a chemist shop, buy the vaccine and then get inoculated?
We were thinking probably March or April, but if we can satisfy all the requirements of the government and give it to the needy and the most vulnerable, as I mentioned before that, and the government eases their restrictions, then, that date could be as soon as February in the private market. But again, that's subject to the government deciding on, how they think that'll affect the vulnerable supply of vaccines to the most needy. So we'll have to wait and see. But I think it's realistic to say March. If it can be brought forward, we've got the stock and availability to do so.
Okay, so you're saying in just about 3 months from now, these vaccines could be available privately. You've answered multiple questions. It's a big day for you in your personal journey and for India as we wait those vaccines now to be rolled out to the Indian citizens. We wish you all the best. Adar Poonawalla for joining us on India Today. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Rahul.
Hello everyone, this is Rahul Kanwal here. Hope you enjoyed this video. For the latest news and analysis, like and subscribe the India Today YouTube channel and don't forget to press the bell icon to stay updated.